It started like any other Friday night. Me, alone in my small apartment, scrolling endlessly through a popular dating app. I wasn't desperate, just curious. Work had been long and exhausting, and I wanted something, anything, to break the monotony. That's when I saw him. The profile photo was oddly captivating. A man in his late 20s with dark hair and an intense gaze. His bio was simple, not your average guy. Let's see where the night takes us. Something about his eyes made me pause. They weren't warm or inviting like most profiles. They held a strange, almost unsettling depth. But maybe I was overthinking it. I swiped right. The match was instant. His name was Adam. We started chatting right away. At first, the conversation was normal. Talk about favorite movies, music, and weekend plans. But soon, things took an unexpected turn. Adam asked unusual questions about my daily routine, where I lived, who I trusted. I found it a little creepy, but shrugged it off, thinking maybe he was just curious or socially awkward. He told me he worked nights at a security company, which explained his odd hours. I felt a weird pull toward him, despite the unease bubbling inside me. After a couple of days of messaging, he asked to meet. I hesitated, but his persistence wore me down. We agreed on a local cafe. Busy, public, safe. The day arrived, and my heart pounded with anticipation and anxiety. When I saw Adam in person, it was different from his pictures. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and there was a coldness about him that didn't register on the screen. Still, I tried to stay polite and open. The meeting was awkward but uneventful. He talked more about himself, sharing odd stories about his past jobs and strange encounters. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me too closely, reading every move, analyzing every word. As I left the cafe, a shiver ran down my spine. I told myself it was just nerves. But deep down, something told me this was the beginning of something much darker. That night, after meeting Adam, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured his cold stare, how he seemed to enjoy making me uncomfortable. My phone buzzed past midnight. It was a text from him. "I had a great time today. Hope you got home safe." I replied with a simple, "Yeah, thanks, good night," hoping to end the conversation. But he didn't stop. Over the next few days, Adam bombarded me with messages, memes, jokes, random thoughts at odd hours. At first, it was just annoying. Then it turned unsettling. "I noticed you didn't answer my last text. Busy or ignoring me? I saw you online. You should reply." The possessiveness was jarring, especially since we'd only met once. I decided to pull back, letting hours pass before responding, hoping he'd get bored. Instead, he escalated. One night, I got home late from work, exhausted. I dumped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and froze. On my small kitchen table was a single white rose. No note, no explanation. Panic surged through me. Had I left the door unlocked? I checked. Locked tight. Windows too. Was someone inside right now? I grabbed a knife from the drawer and searched the apartment, trembling. Nothing. My phone buzzed. Another text from Adam. "White roses mean new beginnings. Did you like it?" I felt sick. How did he get inside? Or did he somehow slip it through the mail slot, though that seemed impossible? My mind raced. I typed back, hands shaking. "That's not funny. How did you do that? Just wanted to surprise you. Don't worry." Suddenly, his odd questions from before about my routine and living situation clicked into place. I had handed him a blueprint of my life without realizing it. Fear wrapped around me like a cold chain. I decided then I'd cut off contact, block him, disappear. But it wasn't going to be that easy. The next morning, I blocked Adam on everything. Text, the dating app, even social media. I felt a small rush of relief, like I'd slammed a door on a nightmare. For the rest of the day, I tried to act normal, focusing on work, ignoring the urge to constantly look over my shoulder. That evening, as I walked home, the street felt different, quieter. Shadows seemed to stretch longer than usual. A silver car crept slowly down my block. I didn't think much of it at first, until it passed, paused at the corner, then circled back. My heart skipped. I ducked into a convenience store, pretending to browse snacks. Peeking through the window, I saw the car make another slow pass before finally driving off. When I got home, I double-locked the door and pushed a chair under the knob. I sat in the living room, lights blazing, clutching my phone like a lifeline. My mind kept racing. Was it Adam? Had he followed me from work? At 3 a.m., I awoke on the couch to the sound of a faint tap, tap, tap at my window. My apartment was on the second floor. No balcony, no fire escape. I froze, barely breathing. The tapping came again, like fingernails on glass. Slowly, I crept to the window and pulled back the curtain just an inch. Nothing. But then, my phone lit up on the coffee table. A new number. The message was short. Nice place. Cozy. You look pretty when you sleep on the couch. I nearly dropped the phone. My stomach twisted. Tears sprang up in my eyes as reality set in. He wasn't just guessing. He could see me. I called the police. When they arrived, they searched around but found nothing. They treated it like a crank case, suggested it was probably a prank, and left me alone again. I felt exposed, humiliated. Was I losing my mind? That night, I barely slept, too terrified he might be standing outside, watching. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called in sick, too scared to leave my apartment. I spent hours pacing, peering through blinds, jumping at every noise. My phone stayed silent, but that only made it worse. I felt like I was living under a microscope, waiting for the next message, or worse, for him to break in. By evening, I convinced myself maybe it was over. Maybe blocking him had worked. I tried to cook something, needing a distraction. That's when I heard it. A soft scrape against my front door. I held my breath. The sound came again, like someone dragging their fingers down the wood. I crept to the peephole. At first, I saw nothing. Then, slowly, a face leaned into view. Too close. Distorted by the fisheye glass. It was Adam. His eyes were wide, lips twisted in a grotesque grin. I stifled a scream and stumbled backward. He knocked, softly, like we were old friends. Come on, I know you're in there. Just open the door. Let's talk. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 again, whispering frantically. The dispatcher stayed on the line, urging me to stay calm. Adam kept knocking, tapping, whispering my name through the door in a sick, sing-song voice. You don't have to be scared of me. I just want to see you up close. The sirens couldn't come fast enough. When they finally pulled up outside, I ran to the window and shouted for help. By the time officers made it to my door, Adam was gone. Vanished like a ghost, leaving only faint smudges on the peephole and a deep, claw-like scratch in the paint of my door. The police took it more seriously this time. They filed a full report, promised extra patrols. But the look on their faces told me they didn't expect much. After they left, I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, trying not to break completely. How had a simple swipe right turned my life into this nightmare? I knew I couldn't live like this. The next morning, with trembling hands, I packed a bag. I called my older cousin Mia, who lived 2 towns over, and begged to stay with her for a while. She didn't ask many questions, just told me to come immediately. The moment I arrived at Mia's place, I felt the tight band around my chest loosen. Her house was bright, busy with kids and 2 big dogs. At night, the dogs barked at every leaf that blew by, and oddly, it made me feel safer. Adam wouldn't dare come here, but my relief was short-lived. 3 nights later, Mia woke me at 2 a.m. Her voice was tense. Someone's outside, walking up and down the street. My husband saw them from the window. Looks like a man just standing, staring at the house. I felt my blood run cold. We peered out from behind the curtain. Under a streetlight stood a figure. Tall, dark jacket, hands in pockets. Even from that distance, I could feel his eyes. Watching. Waiting. Mia called the police, who arrived in minutes. When they stepped outside to question the man, he was gone again. Like smoke. They found fresh footprints in the dewy grass, leading right up to Mia's mailbox. That was it. I couldn't put my family in danger. I decided the only way to end this was to stop hiding. I met with a private investigator the next day. He took one look at the messages, the creepy photos, the police reports, and agreed I had a serious problem. For the next week, he worked with local law enforcement. They dug into Adam's background, discovering he'd been reported before by 2 other women who'd mysteriously moved away. He wasn't some lovesick crush gone wrong. He was a predator who used dating apps to hunt. The investigator set a trap, helping me arrange a public meetup at a cafe, this time with plainclothes officers waiting. I was terrified, but determined to end this. When Adam arrived, his smile was hungry. He walked straight toward me, then was slammed to the ground by 3 officers. His face twisted in shock, then rage. As they cuffed him, he shouted my name over and over, voice cracking. "This isn't over! You hear me? I'll find you again!" But deep down I knew it was over. The weeks that followed felt like waking up from a long, fevered dream. Adam was charged with stalking, harassment, and breaking multiple restraining orders from cases I hadn't even known about. Seeing him led away in handcuffs should have filled me with triumph, but mostly I just felt exhausted. I stayed with Mia's family a while longer. The kids' laughter and the dogs snoring at my feet each night were the best therapy I could have asked for. Sometimes, though, even surrounded by warmth, I'd jolt awake at 3 a.m., sure I'd heard tapping at the window, or catch a shape in the yard that was just a garden hose. My body was stuck on high alert, and part of me wondered if it ever wouldn't be. I went to therapy. The first session, I cried so hard I couldn't get a word out. But slowly, my voice came back. The nightmares eased. I learned how to recognize the small triggers, certain men's cologne in a store aisle, the ping of a dating app notification on a stranger's phone. I practiced grounding techniques, even silly ones like naming 5 things I could see and 4 I could touch. They worked. Bit by bit, my world stopped spinning. Adam pled guilty after realizing the mountain of evidence against him. My screenshots, security footage from my building, GPS data from his car tracking my apartment, and then Mia's house. The DA called it an airtight case. I didn't have to testify in court, something I was endlessly grateful for. A protective order was put in place that would last years, and given his record, it was likely he'd be watched closely after release. But the fear didn't vanish overnight. It was like my shadow, sometimes right behind me, other times shrinking under the sun. One afternoon months later, I returned to my own small apartment. The landlord had changed the locks and installed a security camera above my door. It felt different now. Mine again, not haunted by his memory. I unpacked carefully, hanging new curtains, buying cheerful mugs I didn't have before. It was silly how a bright yellow mug with daisies on it could make me tear up. Friends started visiting more. We'd share wine on the couch and laugh about awkward Tinder dates from safer times. One evening, Mia brought her kids over and we built a blanket fort right in my living room. Under that silly cave of pillows, surrounded by giggles and crumbs from popcorn, I realized something. My life was still here. Not stolen, not broken, just changed. Maybe even stronger. I decided to start dating again, but differently. Slowly, cautiously, with coffee dates in crowded places and friends who always knew where I was. The first time I laughed freely with someone new, it startled me. It had been so long since I felt like just a young woman again. Not prey. The happy ending wasn't a perfect bow tied neatly on my life. It was more like gentle sunlight through cracked blinds. Fragile, a little crooked, but beautiful all the same. I slept deeply that night, no dreams of knocking on glass or eyes in the dark. When I woke to morning birds instead of dread, I lay there a while, soaking in how good simple safety could feel. It was my own quiet victory. I'd survived, learned, healed, and I promised myself this. Never again would I ignore my instincts or let anyone dim the light of my life out of fear. No matter how charming a smile, no matter how sweet the words, next time I'd trust the small voice inside that told me when something was wrong, because I deserved a life full of ordinary joys. And finally, truly, I was free to live it.